to the 460th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Logan. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gman from Heck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I just did an off-mind episode about what it would be like to live in a world with superheroes, and that includes like alien invasions and all the stuff like in the Marvel universe and sort of DC, but a little more in Marvel. They seem to be a little different about that. So it's not necessarily as fun and exciting as you might think, maybe. This week, I really don't know what I'm going to do, and I'll talk about that just since I'm not at home. So I'll have to think about that. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gman from Heck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 4. That's ko-fi.com/gman from Heck. All right, so I don't know if this episode is going to sound a little weird. I'm not recording it maybe in the most ideal location. As I mentioned last week, I went to visit my parents, went back home, visit my family that is out here. And so trying to do all that stuff, squeeze this in. So I think we're still going to have like a regular show. I know I say this all the time. I probably didn't read all the comics. I didn't read all the comics that I normally would read, but I read most of them. So we're going to get to it. So if it sounds a little weird, sorry. But like I said, I want to make sure we get an episode every single week. And I do want to talk about records. I think. Okay, let's just talk about some vinyl stuff. Get this out of the way. So 2 things I want to talk about. One is Olivia Rodrigo album. You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love. I think that album's amazing. I think she's an amazing artist. She is young, and she's just, I think she's got a lot of talent. There's a lot of like pop music out there. I don't listen to a lot of it, but what I like about her style is she tends to go a little edgier. Sometimes, it almost would kind of border into like pop punk. This album, not so much. This album is a little more emotional. There's some stuff that kind of, rocks a little bit. But I've been listening to it a lot, and it's something. There's a lot of emotion in there. So be prepared for that. And I've been seeing a lot of people praising the albums. It's gotten a lot of high reviews. I don't normally look at that, but it's been all over like my Instagram and Facebook feed. And I didn't realize there's like a Metacritic score for records, which I guess makes sense. I've never looked at music reviews, and people are saying it was like, oh, contender for album of the year, and all this stuff. It was like 81 point something million streams on Spotify the first day. Now, something like that bothers me because I don't use Spotify. So it's like my streams don't count. I've said it before, I use Prime Music just because I have Amazon Prime. And last I saw, Prime Music pays a little bit higher royalties than Spotify, but that's what people look at. And, there's also like Apple Music and all different sorts of things like that. So I've been enjoying that. The second thing I want to say, because I don't want to dwell too much in case you're like, who or what? I finally heard the Taylor Swift song. I don't even remember. I knew you or something like that. I'll admit I've been, I've always been like a big Taylor Swift fan. I think I might have touched on it last week that I've been avoiding that song. It's weird. I don't know what to think anymore because, like I said, I am a big Taylor fan. And I think I may have mentioned before on Reddit, there are strangely these like Taylor hate subreddits. And there's so many people involved with it. And just the things that they go on, it blows me away. And it's kind of sad that these people have nothing to do but to just complain, vent, whatever. I don't know. And the only reason I see it is because the way the algorithm works or whatever. You read one thing, Reddit will keep suggesting, posts from that whatever subreddit until, I guess, you join it. So I haven't joined it, but I always find it interesting and fascinating. But a lot of the stuff that people are saying, I'm starting to wonder, like, is this true? Because it does seem like, Taylor's very, what's not manipulative, controlling. I don't know what I'm trying to think here. But, one of the things that they've commented on is Taylor in the pap walk. Every time she's out, she looks right at the camera. And, most celebrities, they duck down, they cover their face, they wear, whatever. And, so the theory, the conspiracy theory is that she calls a paparazzi like, hey, I'm going to be here, take this picture. And there could be something to say for that. Is one, you're getting exposure, whether that's what she wants or not. But the other thing is like, okay, we're going to be here. Let's get it out of the way. And then, you can go somewhere after and maybe, hopefully there'll be no one around. I don't know. The other thing is, it seems like every time a female artist is going to release a single or an album, the idea is that she tries to block it. She'll put out another variant. And so many artists these days put out variants, different colored vinyls, different tracks, or whatever this. But she puts out so many like acoustic remix, this and that. And it's strange that it's whenever there's another big thing. So it's like, is she really that obsessed with charting, trying to stay at number one? And one of the things I just saw recently is Jack Antonoff, whatever. They worked together. They co-wrote a bunch of stuff. And he recently got married. I don't know how recent. And he wrote this song. There's a Bleacher song called Dirty Wedding or Dirty Wedding Dress or something like that. So a lot of people point out it's like Taylor's wearing this pale blue dress, looked very white in the sunlight. And it's like, did she do that on purpose? She allegedly gave like a 15-minute toast. Let's make it all about her. And you always see that whenever there's someone around, she's like pats, like whenever she's with like Sabrina Carpenter, she like pats her in the head, like she's her little pet or something like that. And she's done that to so many people because, she's tall. But in this song, he talks about, it says something about always looking, she says something about the streams and something about being bully, especially to the dolls. So it's like, is she being a bully to like the younger female artists? And at, a couple events recently, was like praising Somber. If you don't know, Somber is a young 20-something male singer. He's pretty good. My daughter, that's how I found out about him, through her. But, she's going on praising this, because he's a dude. He's not a threat to her. And it's interesting, like with Olivia Rodrigo's album that came out, there's so many female artists that have just on social media, like talking about the album, how much they love it. And even like, someone like Michelle Branch, who, has, I can't remember the last thing she did a cover. There's like all this stuff out there. I don't know, but this is probably not why you're listening to the show. So yeah, I've been like, I don't know about Taylor. And then, people are saying like, oh, the song's a little country. Country's not my jam. And there's also people saying she's doing this just so she can try to get an Oscar, for like original song or whatever. And I could totally see that. The thing is, with this song, having listened to it finally during the credits of the movie, I was not impressed. I would not say it's one of her better songs. I almost would say she kind of peaked at Folklore. So I don't know. And I will say this right now, and there may be some people that are going to hate me saying this or whatever, but I do not feel there's anything like extraordinary special about that song to be nominated for an Oscar. I don't watch the Oscars. I don't really follow award shows anymore because I don't agree with them, and I don't care about a lot of the stuff that's nominated. And I don't know what other original songs there will be because I don't always like pay attention to stuff like that. Like, oh, this might win an Oscar. So if it does get nominated, and heaven forbid, if it wins, there's something going on there. That's all I'll say about that. So less than a year, we can find out. We'll talk more about. I was going to talk about the Taylor stuff during the movie, but there you go. I wanted to talk about vinyls. Oh, going back to Olivia Rodrigo, what I've been saying, it's interesting now as she's getting more popular, with this third album, because she's all three of her albums have debuted at number one, and or she's had singles, and it's like all this stuff. She's breaking all these records, and because of that, it seems like people are starting to throw some hate in her direction. There are some Swifties that were calling her Tay daughter, just because has some success. It's like Taylor has nothing to do with that. So you got that, but apparently there's a lot of people complaining that songs on the vinyl or maybe even cassette are different than what is out on streaming. Some people are saying that some stuff is shorter, that some verse, like the outro, is cut out, or this or that. And what I've seen I've seen this like multiple times. It's because no one ever uses a search when they post on Reddit. But some people are saying is because of the length of an album, that the record is like 51 minutes, and that's kind of like the border, like the limit for what you can put on vinyl without having to split it. So I think they kind of tweak some of the songs. Now, the other thing that has been said is that she's been like tweaking songs like up until right before it was released. Now, in order for an album to be pressed on vinyl or cassette or CD, it's going to take some time. So those versions had to have been submitted, I don't know, weeks ago, months ago, however long that is. And if she's still tweaking it here and there, so maybe she's like, oh, this song could use another verse. Let's add that. Let's do that. And so there's a lot of people like, oh, if I would have known, I wouldn't have bought the vinyl. I want a refund. And there's even someone's like, I want to ask for a refund and keep that record. It's like, seriously? So I don't know what the deal is, because people are saying it's false advertising by saying that you can get the record. I just think, I don't know, that just seems ridiculous. And especially if she was tweaking stuff, and because there have been times where you'll hear a slightly different version of a song on an album than versus a single, and yeah, so there you go. But I love the album, so I just want to go on record with that. Have I even talked about what's on this episode? I guess I should have mentioned that first, and I don't think I'm going to edit this in any ways. All right, so what's going to be on this? I kind of mentioned that the movie features going to be Toy Story 5, so you can hear about that. And also, in case I forget, I hope I won't forget, I saw it in an XD theater. And at first I was like, what is XD? So we can talk about that. I don't have much to say about it, but we can mention that. We will have Spider-Noir, one episode, again, because I've been traveling and all this stuff. And then to make up for not doing 2 episodes, we also have the first episode of the season, the new season of My Adventures with Superman. So you can hear about that, plus comics and the news. So I don't know how long that intro was, way longer than I intended, but I'll put time codes. There should be time codes, so in case you want to skip the record stuff. All right, we had a Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer that came out this week, and I'm trying to remember what it was. There's a lot of cool stuff. It looks very intense, and I'm excited for the movie. Tickets are on sale. And what I kind of realized, it makes sense, this movie's not going to be released in IMAX because Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is going to be in IMAX. So it's crazy that you can only have one movie in IMAX. So I guess that's just how it goes. Someone has to, and I don't even know how it is. So you have to bid, maybe? You have to try to reserve. So whoever does it first, whoever's the biggest... Because, does IMAX get a cut out of it? I don't understand it. And that's what the problem is with Dune 3 and Avengers Doomsday, is They're both set to release on the same day. For whatever reason, maybe because Dune 1 and Dune 2 were in IMAX, Dune 3 is going to be in IMAX. So that means Avengers Doomsday can't be in IMAX. And I don't even know if Avengers Doomsday has anything shot in IMAX. So, there's that. I'm assuming Dune 3 will be filmed entirely or maybe partially in IMAX, because I know the other ones have. Apparently, allegedly. So people are like, Disney should just bump their movie up a week so it can at least get a week, whatever. And at first I was like, what's the big deal? I was like, I'm going to see, if it comes to opening day, whatever that day is, December, and I'll tell you right now, I could try to do both. I'm probably not going to do both the same week. Maybe I'll save one for the following week, because I'm going to assume there may not be something. We'll see. But my first choice, I'm going with Avengers Doomsday. That is going to be my number one movie. And then I'll see Dune 3. I like the Dune movies. I don't love them. I think I've made that clear. They're going to be good. They're going to be gorgeous. They're going to be amazing. They're going to be epic. It's just not necessarily my thing. I want an Avengers movie. But I guess the thing is, by Avengers not being in IMAX, they're going to lose out on that IMAX money. Because I realized when I saw Disclosure Day, it's like $24 that I'm paying, and I don't even know what it's like in the city or other places. So that makes a difference. Like for me, I think it's like a difference of like $24 versus maybe 15 or 16. And if you think about every single person going to see that, that's an automatic upgrade. Like I realized. The Toy Story, I paid, I'll talk about this, I paid a lot more. I paid extra, and I bought a ticket for my brother. So we'll talk about that. So that makes sense that, they want to be in the bigger theaters. But apparently, Spider-Man will be in Screen X. So there's that. I kind of like the Screen X for something. In Masters Universe, it was cool. Project Hail Mary was amazing. So there might be something to say for that. I'm really curious how Mandalorian Grogu would have been in Screen X, but since I saw an IMAX, I'm like, I can't buy another movie ticket. So I don't know, but the trailer looks interesting. The big thing is like, who the heck is Sadie Sink playing? Everyone's like, she's playing Jean Grey, and that still has not been confirmed. You have all the scoopers saying that she is. I still don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe they have some good sources, and that's what it's going to be. It just, to me, it seems so weird that they're going to introduce the X-Men. They're going to relaunch the X-Men franchise, and they're going to do it in a Sony movie, not even a Marvel movie. And I know they work with Marvel and blah, 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 but it's a Sony movie. So I don't know what that means. I guess it's just like, didn't Spider-Man first appear in Civil War, which was a Marvel movie? So, it could be. It just seems weird. And then there's a lot of people, or there's a theory that maybe she's not going to be Jean Grey. She's going to be this character called Spider-Queen. I vaguely remember that character. Maybe I'm just like trying to forget it. And there are some things because like the spider DNA and what we see in the trailer, and is Spider Peter evolving? Are they going to go into the other storyline? It was called The Other, if you remember. What it doesn't seem like that would make sense is apparently Sadie Sink is going to be in Avengers. Oh, now I don't remember if it's Secret Wars or Doomsday. Maybe Secret Wars. She's going to be one of them. Maybe it's Doomsday. And if she was playing a villain, it would seem like it'd be less likely, some random spider villain to appear in an Avengers movie. But you never know. So we'll have to see. But I need to look into getting a ticket because, I'll see it in Screen X if it's not in IMAX. That sounds good to me. Speaking of Masters Universe, as I mentioned before, how are they going to do a sequel? It had a $200 million budget, and I think I touched on this last week. Apparently, it dropped to number 5 last week, not this current week. as of then, it's only made 84 million. So it might make a little more this weekend, probably not much. So if it's only made 200, or if it's only made 84 million off a $200 million budget, how are they going to justify making a sequel? Because I think, early on they're like, well, it's not just going to be about the box office. They're going to look at that. There are other ways to recoup it. And the thing is, if it's an Amazon movie, Amazon MGM, they could say, well, we're going to show it exclusively on Prime. Will that bring in subscribers? I always question, how does like Netflix do that? They spend all this, millions of dollars on a production, and I'm still subscribed. I'm not going to like cancel and then renew because they're doing something cool. So I don't know. And, you have the merchandise. The only way I could see it is that obviously they would have to scale it down, have a way smaller budget, and maybe, I don't know if this would be a good idea, maybe you try to figure out like, well, what if we do some sort of spin-off? Like maybe it's not all the Masters of the Universe, all the characters, we've seen so many, but they just make a tighter cast. Maybe there's like He-Man and Teela. And, will there be Man-at-Arms? I would hope so, but, maybe they don't have him. Maybe they don't have He-Man's mom, or, and instead of having all the villains, maybe just have, I don't know. But that's not, I mean, I enjoyed the movie, and I know a lot of people had issues with it, but I thought it was a lot of fun. So I would like to see more. I don't know if that's going to happen. And I don't think they would do like a direct, like a Prime exclusive. Maybe, but how much do they spend on those movies? So I don't know. Some interesting sequels coming out. I think there was a trailer for Shrek 5. And I'm not excited for that. I'm not really a Shrek fan. No offense to anyone who is. It's just, I saw the first one. I probably saw the second one. I don't know. If it's, how many, what did I say, Shrek 5? Is that 5? Have there been 4 Shreks? I know there's no way I saw 4 Shreks. And I didn't even see Puss in Boots. And Puss in Boots was, Antonio Banderas was great. But I don't need another Shrek movie. I do like Michael Myers. I do like Eddie Murphy. I don't really care for it. I don't know. Will I watch it? Hope not. I hope it doesn't mean like there's nothing else, then that's the only thing. What I am excited, there's going to be an Austin Powers 4. There's a Verizon commercial with like Dr. Evil, Scott, number 2, what's her name, Frau something, and it's a phone commercial, but it's Dr. Evil. So that was hilarious. He was Mike Myers, not Michael Myers. Mike Myers was somewhere, and what's that guy's? Anyways, someone asked him, they're like, "Do you think there'd be an Austin Powers 4?" And he's like, "Yes." And they're like, "Whoa, you didn't even have to think about that." So he said it right away. He's like, "Yeah, there's going to be an Austin Powers 4." And there's also going to be a How to Grinch Stole Christmas 2 with Jim Carrey. And, when you talk to my brother about this, he's like, why did they wait so long to make all these sequels? The only thing I can think of is it's a nostalgia thing. Because at the time, after Shrek 4, Austin Powers 3 or whatever, there might not have been like a demand for another one. And so it would be hard for the studios to justify, let's spend all this money to do another one when people didn't really come out to this one. And then, time goes on, actors get busy, and it's not the right time. But I feel like everyone has that nostalgic, cravings or whatever. And you might think about this, like when I saw that Verizon commercial, I was like, this is great. Of course, I was always an Austin Powers fan. I enjoyed those movies. So I feel like there's something about that as time passes, then people are like, oh yeah, I'd go to see that. But How to Grinch Stole Christmas 2? Are they going to bring back Cindy Lou Who? I forget her name. She's like a legit rocker now. So that would be interesting. I don't know. What about Fallout Season 3? So there's some casting updates. Apparently, I missed this. Thomasin McKenzie, who was in, was it Last Night in Soho? Was that the name of the movie? I really like that movie. Edgar Wright movie. She was also in Jojo Rabbit, and she was amazing in that. And I think she was in Old, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. She's going to be in this. And Aaron Paul has apparently already been announced. I missed that. And the latest is Manny Jacinto is also going to be in it. I only know him from Star Wars The Acolyte, but he's been in some other stuff. And it's kind of funny because I was talking to my brother about Star Wars The Acolyte. You know, we were talking about all the Star Wars stuff, and he's like on the, he's not, I don't know if I don't think he's seen like a lot of the Disney stuff, Disney Star Wars stuff, but he's like, yeah, it doesn't feel right. And, you know, I gave him my whole monkey bars analogy where, you know, you liked monkey bars as a kid, and these days you don't care about monkey bars so much. So I think that's how Star Wars is. You know, the Star Wars today isn't necessarily meant for those who were alive when it first came out or whatever. And it's just like when Phantom Menace came out, a lot of people were upset because it wasn't necessarily meant for them. You know, George Lucas wanted to make a movie, you know, that younger generation could enjoy. So I don't know. But The Acolyte, I think there was a lot of potential, I thought, with that. There's some interesting things. And just the fact that they were going into the Darth Plagueis territory, and now we're not going to get that. So that's just annoying. But new casts coming to Fallout. No word on when that will come out. So we'll just have to wait. There's the other thing I was talking to my brother about. He's like, yeah, there's a show on Netflix, and it was The Burrows. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it was by the Duffer Brothers. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you know, they started right away and they did it, whatever. And he's like, it was pretty good. And I looked it up. I was like, The Burrows, and it came out I think it was like May 20th. It was like end of May or something like that. And when I was looking at the credits, I was like, wait, the Duffers were only executive producers. I was like, so what does that really mean? You know, because they weren't, and this is according to IMDb, they didn't do any writing, they didn't do any directing. I think there's 8 episodes. So it's like, a lot of times you see the executive producer, is that an honorary title, or is that, I'm sure they were involved. But Netflix canceled it after 1 season, and it had, according to IMDb, it had decent reviews or decent ratings, you know, user ratings. The only thing that makes sense is the Duffers are moving to Paramount. They have an untitled movie that's going to be at Paramount for November 3rd, 2028. So maybe it's like, yeah, Netflix, we can't be involved with season 2 because we're going to be busy doing this. Couldn't they still do a season 2 without them? Is there like something that's like it's either them or nothing? That's a bummer, because I was like, oh, maybe I'll check that out, and then now I don't know if I should, because that stinks. And that's the problem with Netflix shows. It seems like there's so many shows that come out and they get canceled, and maybe it's because they're all dropped at once. So we got to get rid of this binge culture. Evil Dead Wrath. So we have Evil Dead Burn that's coming out soon. I'm so excited for that. But we have Evil Dead Wrath that is apparently going to be a prequel set in 1972. And what they're going to do is like they're going to really try to recreate the 1972 look and feel, and just, you know, shaky cameras and everything like that. I don't know how people are going to accept that, but I think that's going to be like awesome. When I was like, oh, a prequel, so this is going to take place before like the original Evil Dead, where, you know, the book ends up at this cabin. So it's like, are we going to see something about that? Apparently not, because what they're saying, what I saw on at Gizmodo, it's the story of a French woman in a bad marriage in America, and what we will discover along the ride was probably an abusive husband whose family did not believe her, and so they were basically the in-laws from hell. So it's like, how does that tie in to Evil Dead and the trip to uncover the book? I don't know. Apparently, the Jimmy Olsen and Gorilla Grodd movie will begin, or series, Jimmy Olsen and Gorilla Grodd series will begin filming later this year. That is maybe not necessarily the title. And James Gunn, because he said that it's as much a Jimmy Olsen show as it is a Gorilla Grodd show. So I don't know if they're always going to be hanging out together. I do not know. But we have that. And James Gunn is like, it's one of my favorite projects I've worked on. Is he just saying that to pump it up? Or maybe it's true. Pluribus Season 2. Apparently the writing staff is halfway through. I guess they've kind of mapped out the episodes. They know what they're going to do. And, they're going to start off like dramatic or hard and then, whatever. So that's cool. But once they finish writing it, then they got to film it. And then they got to edit it and do all that stuff. So who knows when we're going to get that. But don't rush it. Make sure it's great. Don't just, crank it out and have it be garbage. I know someone's going to be really happy about this. Well, actually, they're not watching the show anyways. Mark Hamill has joined the cast of Twisted Metal Season 3. He is going to play Pope Charlie Kane, who he's like in charge of, like, I don't know if it's like some sort of cult or something like that, but he's also Sweet Tooth's estranged father. Spoiler, we did see him at the end of Season 2, but maybe, I don't think they actually showed him. They might have implied, and I don't know if we heard anything, and I don't remember if Mark Hamill did the voice or not, or if they did it. I don't know, but we have that to look forward to. I enjoyed Twisted Metal. It's the only thing I watch on Peacock. And the last bit of news, some comic book news. I don't know if I've ever talked about the Marvel Midnight comics. I don't know what to expect. Because is it just a world full of vampires? Are these all tied together? But there's going to be Midnight X-Men, Midnight Fantastic Four. Midnight X-Men is by Jonathan Hickman and Matteo De La Fonte. Midnight Fantastic Four by Benjamin Percy and Kev Walker. Midnight Spider-Man is by Philip Kennedy Johnson and Saiz Trunk. So the news is they're all coming out on the same day, October 7th. And it makes sense, if someone's going to go to buy, because we've been hearing about Midnight X-Men, someone's going to go to buy it, and they're like, oh, wait, here's 2 other Midnights. Oh, I'm here. Might as well check them out. So that makes sense, because like a lot of times I'll see like all the Joshua Williamson books are coming out on the same day, because he writes a lot. And it makes sense, because not everyone is able to go every single week. So you're going to put those out. I just don't know what to think about these Midnight Universe comics. I hope they're good, because if it is just vampires, I have not even read anything about it aside from what I get in the emails, and I haven't even read this. Holy crap, this is a really long email press release. So I need to read this, because I don't know what to expect, but I hope it's good, and I hope the rest of this episode is good and you stick around. But that is going to be the news for the week. All right, with comic books, there was nothing, I don't think, from other publishers. So starting with Image Comics, there was G.I. Joe number 23. I'm not sure how I feel about this. There's a couple characters in here. I don't feel like I'm overly familiar with them. I forgot the one guy's name, and it was really a lot focused on him. And what was strange, he's in some place, and he's like, how do you get there? But there's like Ghost, and it's like, wait, are you really saying he's fighting Ghost? Maybe it has something to do with Energon, whatever stuff that since we're in the Transformer universe. But it's just kind of weird. So I don't know how I feel about it. What was really cool is the $1 Trillion Kid number 1. This is by Jeff Johns and Peter J. Tomasi, and Stefano Simone did the art, and it's cool. It sold out at the retailer level on the day it came out last Wednesday, and there is going to be a second printing coming on July 8th. But it's just, it's so much fun. You got this kid, he becomes like the first trillionaire, and you just see all this stuff and like the stuff that he invents and what he wants to do. And then I will say I guess you could say there's like a twist at the end, but this is also kind of going to be tying in all the other, Mad Ghost books. So, or not, I keep calling it Mad Ghost, Ghost Machine, the Ghost Machine books. So I'm super excited for that. Also, by Jeff Johns and Brian Hitch, is Red Coat number 18. I'm just really digging this. So Simon Pure, he's anything but. He was revolutionary times, and he became immortal. And now, I don't know what year he's at, but previously he met Albert Einstein as a kid. Albert Einstein's older now, and there's this like, I can't even describe it. Omnibus just came out. I'm so tempted to get it. I do want to get it, and I don't like the old timey stuff. So I think that says something right there. So you should definitely check out Red Coat if you haven't been reading it. And then unfortunately there was If Destruction Be Our Lot number 2. So that's another one from Image. I was intrigued by the first one, and it had to deal with, I think there's like robots and stuff, and it's obviously in the future, and then there's this world beyond, or like not really a world beyond, but there's like stuff beyond like the city, and I'm really curious where this is going to go. So I got the issue. I need to read it. I just didn't have time, unfortunately. At Marvel, let's see, what did I read at Marvel? I read just about like all the Marvel books on the plane flying out here. And again, this is why, thank you so much, Marvel, for making my life easier, for entrusting me, giving me the opportunity to read comics early, unlike a certain other publisher, who I won't name. But also saying, thanks to Image Comics, they are awesome. They got an amazing PR team. I love Image's PR team. Yeah, they're just great. Marvel's great. So we had Amazing Spider-Man number 31, and this is Legacy. I think it's, what is this? Oh man, this is so tiny. Let me try to make this bigger. Legacy 995. So we're getting close to issue 1,000. Now, I do not know how you feel about this. This is one thing. There's it's a little confusing here. There's almost like two different stories going on at the same time, and because you see Peter Parker in one case and you see Spider-Man in the other case, and they're not necessarily connected at all. So that was a little weird, and it's like which took place first. But they're both kind of interesting. But the main thing that you see on the cover is the stuff with Aunt May. So during the Torment storyline, where this serial killer thing was targeting all the family members of Eddie Brock, Peter Parker, Mary Jane, all of them, is just trying to just end everyone. And it turned out that Peter Parker had a cousin that he didn't realize. He was like older than him. Like maybe like 15 years older than him, I guess. He looks older than, but whatever. And it turns out, it's not really a spoiler, sort of, but not really, is somehow, apparently, allegedly, it's Aunt May and Uncle Ben's kid, because he does, Peter's like, the last issue, he's like, I should have seen a resemblance, because he kind of does look like Uncle Ben. So it's like, how could that be? It's like, how could Aunt May and Uncle Ben have a kid and they didn't know about it? Because the whole thing apparently was always that Aunt May couldn't have kids. That's why they never did. And then they were blessed by being able to raise Peter. Fortunately it meant, what's Peter's dad's name? Mary and Richard. They died. So they raised Peter. So it makes sense what they say here. I'm just super skeptical though, because I remember when Peter's parents came back from the dead, like, oh, we were captured by S.H.I.E.L.D. or we were held prisoners or whatever, and they turned out to be robots that crazy Harry Osborn made or something like that to mess with Peter. So I don't know, it just seems like I worry. There's also Deadly Hands of Kunlun, number 5. I don't know if I kind of wish I was reading this, but I don't know if I would enjoy it or not. There's Imperial Guardians, number 4, which I'm not reading that because I don't tend to like the space stuff. We had Inglorious X-Force, number 6. This was okay. I think it, like, for me, if it wasn't for Kamala being on the team, it's because they're not a likable group. It's weird. You got Dawkins, or whatever you want to call him. Tabitha, she's okay. We got Angel, he's all weird. But then there's stuff with Domino, and then the fact that Cable kind of wiped some of her memories, and she's like, I don't know where that story's gonna go with. But I read it, so there's that. Magic and Colossus, number 5. I feel like I should go back and read this because I'm really curious what this story is about, and if it's something cool or if it's just something that would just be And I'm assuming it's a miniseries, but I don't know. There's a Predator Bloodshed, number 5. No idea what this is about. I always find it weird. I don't know. I don't know if this is on Earth or on some other planet, but it looks like there's some humans. I always find it to be a bit much when you have all these Predator stories and it's like constant like Predator versus human, Predator, because it's like, I feel like it shouldn't happen that often, that like the humans shouldn't be aware, because if there's like all these records of humans fighting predators, then you would think they would know what to do and how to defeat them. So I have no idea what this is about. The Punisher, number 5. This was a little confusing to me. I also find the numbering weird. It's not that weird for me, but this ties into the previous Punisher, like right before this series, where he had like a chip put in his head and Kingpin was using him as an assassin. Crazy. But now we got all this Jigsaw stuff, and it's like Jigsaw, he almost looks like Frank Castle, and he hates the Punisher, I guess because he scarred up his face, right? Is that the story? I don't care for Jigsaw, but one of his things is he cuts people's face off. So they're fighting, and he's like threatening to do that, but it's like, obviously you can't cut off Frank's face. I don't know if he ever did that before, because I feel like this is the first time he's posed as the Punisher, or tried to pose, and he's got like this all stitched up costume, like he's trying to be him. But the one thing that bothered me is they're fighting, and Jigsaw's got like this big blade, and he's like slashing at Punisher, and I could see, okay, fine, slash his arm or leg or something like that, that's gonna hurt, whatever. But there's a point where he like slashes his chest like a couple times, and like right over the skull. The whole point of the skull is that's supposed to be Kevlar there, and the Punisher has a big white skull on his costume, so people will shoot at the skull where he has his protection versus shooting him in the arm or in the head. So there's no way this blade should cut through that. And the way it looked like it was just like cloth or like spandex. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe I missed something, I don't know. Spider-Man Long Way Home. This, I was so confused reading. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So, this is Jonathan Hickman and Adam Kubert. Yeah. Andy tends to do DC, right? Is that how it goes? Of course it's Adam. So when I was reading this, one, Long Way Home, that's going to be confusing to some people because it has nothing to do with the movies. And the other thing, because I hadn't read any interviews, I don't even remember reading any like press releases for this. I might have just missed them or got buried in my inbox. It is not in continuity, because there's like stuff going on. Like, I think it was Agent Quartermain calls, or someone calls, maybe it was Nick Fury, calls Spider-Man, and they need him on a mission. And then so it's like, wait, Agent Clay Quartermain is there, like SHIELD has helicarriers and they're calling Spider-Man Like, what? Shield's barely even around these days, let alone have helicarriers. And then we got the Punisher. We got Frank Castle. He's in like with a troop with a bunch of people, and they're calling him the Punisher. You know, they all have their code names. But it's like, wait, he wasn't called the Punisher until after. And then like Hulk shows up, and they're like, wait, who's? I don't think they knew who Hulk was. And also, it's called Spider-Man. Spider-Man's hardly even in this book, but it is cool. So it must absolutely be out of continuity, and just enjoy it for that. Okay, then we had Sorcerer Supreme number 7. I do not know who this dude on the cover with Wanda is. He's like some blonde dude. I'm not reading that. I like one. I can't get into it. Spectacular Spider-Man. Brand New Day. Oh, I was like, wait, what is this? Maybe this is the other one that's kind of confusing. This has nothing to do with the movie, even though it's Spider-Man and the Punisher. That is super, I feel like that's super misleading and it's kind of not cool. Because people might see this and be like, oh, is this tied into the movie? No. This has to do with when Marvel Comics did Brand New Day back in the day. And it's basically Spider-Man versus Mr. Negative, and Punisher's become infected by Mr. Negative, and yeah, it's all right, but it's like, yeah, it takes us back to that era. Uncanny X-Men, Mars Needs Mutants. I read this, so what I didn't mention feels like it was last week, is I'm a little confused because I'm not reading this series. I saw someone mention somewhere that Rogue and Gambit were leaving, and so they're bringing in Monet and Quicksilver to kind of lead the team and take care of the kids. But then Gambit was here in this issue, so I don't know where Rogue is, and I must have known it, but I think Quicksilver and Monet are a couple, which seems weird. He seems like he's way too older than she would be. Because she was like in Generation X, so I feel like she's younger. Maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, how old is he? I don't know. Sliding time scale. But this was the kids had prom at their school, and then of course things are happening, and you see there's aliens on the cover. I won't say anything more than that, but that will be coming up. What If the Mighty Thor? So basically, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like getting into it. Then it started, maybe it was just too long, but I felt like I was losing some steam towards the end. But basically, it goes back to Secret Wars, and Thor ends up getting the symbiote costume instead of Spider-Man. And there's definitely some interesting things, but then things kind of veer off, and it's like, I don't know. So, kind of interesting. Wonder Man number 4. This gets a little weird. You see on the cover, Simon and Hellcat and Patsy are flying and embraced. And all I'll say is I just had to stop reading this on the plane, because Simon is like in a hospital gown and they're flying, and then he ends up losing his gown, and then she sheds her clothes, and I was like, yep, I'm not going to be reading this when people around can see this. It's an okay storyline. I'm surprised I'm not liking it more since it's Jerry Duggan writing it, but something about it's just not quite working for me. And then X-Men United. I'm struggling with this. So this, I don't know where this is going, but this is, Emma's got this place where they go into psychic plane, they can do their training together, meet, and Cyclops is like, I don't think this is a good idea and everything. He's still kind of going along with it, that, whatever, see how things are going. And then if you look at the cover to the next issue, one of the many of my least favorite characters is, so yeah, maybe Cyclops was right, that this isn't a good idea. At DC, so this is where I did not read a lot, we had Absolute Batman number 21. this is a book. People love this book. I'm glad. I'm excited. I'm happy for them. It's, I don't know. I just find it okay. I don't like some of the things that have happened, but again, I can absolutely appreciate it that it makes it different from the main DC book. Like, spoiler, one of the things that happened couple issues ago recently is Jim Gordon is dead. I don't like that idea. I just like, I don't like Alfred being dead. I think it's dumb. And I don't know. And then there's the fact that Bruce is like friends with all he's friends with the Penguin, with Two-Face, with Killer Croc, and with Riddler. They're all his friends, but they're like sort of like becoming those characters, they sort of have. And, they all know that he's Batman, so that's just weird. And then we got Joker, which, apparently people really love this absolute version of Joker, but I don't know, it's just not for me, and that's fine. Not everything has to be for me. But, I'm glad the book is successful. People are reading comics, buying comics, because that's what we need. Absolute Green Arrow #2. This is interesting because I have no idea what is going on, where this is going, but it almost seems like, allegedly Ollie is dead, and there's someone that is killing all of his like business partners using the Green Arrow, because it was like Green Arrow, that was the name of the company or something or whatever, and they're trying to figure out who it is. But then other people are dying in the Ollie Green Arrow family, so it's just like, wait, you're killing off everyone right away? So we have Black Canary, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm definitely intrigued with this, because it is dark with the killing, but it's like, because it's not, it is Green Arrow Ollie. If it's Ollie, why is he killing people and killing some, people close to him? So it's like, what is going on? We also had Absolute Flash #16, which I'm not reading someday. I didn't get around to Nightwing 139. I haven't been loving the series lately, which makes me sad. I didn't read Batman Superman World's Finest. Someday I'm going to start with New Titans. And I didn't get to, I guess that's all I read. I didn't get to Superman Unlimited, which I'm curious. Actually, I don't know if I'm assuming this is still focusing on Jonathan. Batwoman I'm not reading, and then Deathstroke what number was this? I want to read that. And that's it. And then there's Lobo, End of Life. I'm a few issues behind on that. I need to check that out. But that is all I read, so that is comic books for the week. Okay, then I guess we'll start with My Adventures with Superman. So Season 3, Episode 1, Into the New World. I do adore this series. I love the character designs, and now that we have Supergirl, as part of the main cast, that's great. Lois is Lois. She can be a little annoying at times. Jimmy is Jimmy. He can be a little annoying at times. But there's definitely some interesting things going on, and one of my main concerns is like, what are they going to do with Kara? And is she going to have a secret identity? Maybe she's not going to have a secret identity, but it appears that she and Jimmy may be liking each other and stuff like that. But it's like, doesn't that just put Jimmy in danger? And I guess, you got the thing is like, well, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, so he's always kind of in danger. But it's like, Kara's always going to be Supergirl. There's something that comes up in this episode. If I want to get there, I'll mention that. So you maybe remember last episode they defeated Brainiac, and that's where Kara realized the error of her ways. She was brainwashed. Because Brainiac basically like raised her and everything, and she was not the nicest person. When going to different worlds that Brainiac wanted to conquer and stuff like that. So here it starts off at the Fortress of Solitude. And I don't remember if we've seen the fortress or not, but it's like out in the Arctic, and that. So Supergirl and Superman are there, and Superman's like, well, this place has changed. He's like, this is the beginning of a brand new future. He's like, Kara, you ready? and she's holding this like black box. At first I'm like, what's that? She's like, I'm ready, but I should be alone when I say goodbye to father. So I was like, wait, her father? But she's talking about Brainiac. She says, she must make her own peace. He's like, okay, I'll be right here. She phases like through the floor because they have the weird technology or whatever. And then the chief steward, it's like a robot, startles Superman by calling out Kal-El. And he's like snuck up behind him somehow, so I guess he couldn't hear him. And he's like, whoa. And he's like, may I have a word? And he's like, who are you? Do you work here? So he says he's a steward of the fortress. And Clark, Superman's like, nice to meet you. And he's like, we have matters of great urgency to discuss with you, Kal-El. And he's like, we? So there are several other bots, like on this like second level. They all start talking at the same time, matters of urgency, things that have been neglected. They must discuss the Kandorian crystal. And he's like, oh boy. So Kara, she's in this like completely black room, and she like lets go of the box and it like floats up, and then you see like Brainiac. He starts speaking, and like an image of him appears. He's like, hello, daughter. And she's like, I've come to say goodbye. And Brainiac's like, ah, yes. On to your new life. You fooled Kal-El into believing you are a hero, and now you will try to play the part. But we know what you really are, Kara. You are your father's daughter, after all. And she's like, I'm nothing like you. And Brainiac's like, when Kal-El realizes who you realize, and she's like, I know who I am. And Brainiac's like, oh, then who are you, child? And she's like, and then like the room is just like black. So she still doesn't quite know. She's still dealing with stuff, which is understandable. And that's unfortunate. Up top, the stewards are still going on about how the reactor's unpredictable, all the stuff that Kara appears. And, so Superman's like, Kara? And she like has a scowl, whoosh, it flies past him, and the steward's like, try to continue. And he's like, we'll talk later. So whoosh, he takes off. And one's like, he does not honor our ways. And the other's like, he will learn. He will have to. Which almost sounded like a threat. So Clara flies up, and she's like screaming, and she's out in space, looking down at the Earth, and she's like, who am I? So then we get the opening, intro, and we see there's more Kara, and it's like, wait, was that Connor? It's like, did we see Connor? Sometimes I forget, like, what did we see, what didn't we see? Because, we have so many different versions of stuff. Like, did we see Superboy? I don't think we did. And like Double X? Am I thinking about something else? I can't keep track. And then there's, of course, Jimmy and Lois and everyone. So Jimmy says that he's doing one of his flame bird things, because like everyone loves Halloween, so they're at the Kent farm, decorations are going up, and he's telling his flame birds to come out to the Kent farm pumpkin patch. He mentions like this corn maze, so big, Supergirl had to come and save him. And she pops up. She's like, your distress was extremely audible. And she looks at the camera. She's like, hello, humans. Do not be deceived by my festive disguise. It is I, Kara Zor-El, Supergirl. So this is where it's like, okay, so she can't use Kara Kent or Kara whatever as a secret identity because she's basically telling the world who she is. So she's like, celebrating your Earth's Halloween. And then Lois pops up behind them. And Lois is like, who are you supposed to be? So Kara's like, oh, our traditional disguises have fooled you, Lois Lane. It is I, Kara. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I know who you are, Kara, but what is... And then she gasps. And Lois like, is this a couple's costume? Because Kara and Jimmy are kind of dressed similarly. So Kara's like, we are Ace Morgan and June Robbins from Challengers of the Unknown. And Lois like, so that's what you two have been up to, watching television? And she's like, yes, on the couch with popcorn together. And Lois is like, wait, are you two? And then Clark is like, Kara, can you please help me with this tractor? And she's like, yes, whoosh. And then Jimmy's like, could you not blow up my spot with Kara? And then Lois is like, you like her? And he's like, of course I like her. Lois, she's fun and beautiful. And she watches my television. And Lois is like, okay, so why are you being weird? She clearly likes you. He's like, and I'm crazy about her. Being with Kara like this, it's incredible. And he says that, this is as far as it's going to go. There's a whole world out there that she hasn't seen yet. And they both know that, she can do better. And then Kara zips back and like startles Jimmy. And then they head off to see some other things. And it was kind of funny. So, Clark wanted Kara to lift the tractor up so he can like work underneath it because I guess he's there as Clark and there's people around there so he can't. use his powers. But Lois tells Clark that Jimmy won't tell Kara how he feels, even though, but he cuts her off. He's like, we cannot get involved. He's like, they have to figure this out on their own. And he's like, remember, neither of them have any romantic experience. And Lois is like, Jimmy does, right? And Clark's like, not that I've seen. And she's like, and that's why you two have bunk beds. Which is so weird that they had bunk beds in their apartment. Later, Clark asks Lois, doesn't she just, love fall on the farm? And she's like, of course I do. And he says that he's been thinking about the future, their future. And he's like, what do you think about a farm outside of the city? And she's like, I could like a hypothetical farm. And he's like, and also a dog. And she's like, sure. He's like, great. So hypothetically, and he takes out his phone. He's like, I found this great listing on the apps for a moderately priced 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house just outside Metropolis in a well-reviewed school district. And her eyes are like getting wider and wider. She's like, school district? She's like, whoa. How long have you been looking into this? He's like, since Brainiac almost destroyed the world, it really made me think about the future. And she's like, Clark, that's a lot of change. He's like, change can be good. And she like chuckles nervously. And she's like, but we have a good thing going on right now. What's the rush? He's like, well, if that's not what you want, then she's like, no, that's not what I meant. Look, Clark, you had an amazing childhood with Mom and Pa. She's like, and I loved them. But I had a different experience with my Dad? So he's there eating pie. So she chuckles nervously. She's like, Dad, why are you here? He's like, the Kents invited me. Couldn't say no to pie. And now that I'm retired. And she's like, retired? Really? He's like, well, I'm at the Pentagon now. And she's like, of course you are. And she's like, you're really just here for pie? He's like, and to see my daughter. It's like, I wanted to give her something I found while cleaning out my office. So he gives her like this old compass. He's like, in case you need help finding your way. He's like, you've got your whole future ahead of you. And she's like, oh, thanks, Dad. So they hug. And he's like, also have a tip about a recent server breach at the Pentagon. And she's like, here we go. So he's like, files were stolen, detailing the decommissioned Project Caliban, a biotech research program that ran parallel to Cadmus and Task Force X. And she's like, wait, a Kryptonian biotech program? He's like, exactly. I think you should have your flying friend look into it. And she's like, awesome. Thanks for the tip. And he's like, wait, Lois, Superman should look into this. Do you hear me? Superman. Because she's like, I don't know if she's going to write a story. But I don't know if I mentioned, I think she was dressed as Amelia Earhart. I could be wrong. So out past the woods, there's like a base. It's like behind sort of like a covered chain link fence. There's like something covering the fence, like not a sheet or something. So Lois and Clark are there. And he asks if she promises they'll be back in time to hand out candy. And she's like, of course. And, she will not let down the children of Metropolis or him. And so he just grabs the fence and he just like tosses it. And so she's bummed because, when they go inside, like all the rooms are empty. So that they, cleared the place out. Jimmy's there too. And he says that if they're ever here at all, because there's no roads leading there, it's just this fenced off area in the middle of like the woods. She's like, there's no plumbing. All these buildings don't even have doors. Like this whole place seems fake. And Lois is like, so why build a fake facility? And then Kara calls out, she's like, look, a dog. But it's actually a deer. Jimmy's like, not all Earth animals are dogs. And he's like, see, it's a deer. It turns to look at them, but then it has like two heads, like joined together, like half, there's like a deer head and like a wolf head. And so Jimmy screams, he's like, not a deer. And Kara's like, I told you it was a dog. She flies over. She's like, I would like to pet you. She's going after it. She finds this door and the others come over and they say it looks like the door was forced open. Clark rips it off. He's like, it must have been something, really strong. Jimmy says then something must have resealed it from the inside. So Clark says, something that could still be down there because there's like just dark stairs leading down. So Kara has a flashlight. She's like, let us investigate. And Clark's like, wait, you're just going to march on in there? And she's like, courage is a Kryptonian virtue, Kal-El. And it's like, what could be better than solving an actual mystery? Jimmy's like, what could be better than solving an actual mystery on Halloween with your 3 best friends? And Clark's like, I don't know, bobbing for apples? And Lois is like, relax, Smallville. She's like, we got Superman to keep us safe. So there's a lot of stairs going down. It's almost like a fire escape, like going. Jimmy says this place goes really deep. He hopes, all the digging didn't upset the underground dino people. And Lois like, Jimmy, the earth isn't hollow, and there isn't a secret place of dino people living inside. And he's like, oh, just how aliens and Bigfoot weren't real. And scoffs. And Lois is like, Clark doesn't count. And he's like, thanks. And Lois is like, and your Bigfoot was a French gorilla. So lights start turning on, and there's like big, tall tubes. So they wonder, what is all this? Lois says that she doesn't know, but whatever it is, and there's been fighting here, and there's a hole in the wall and some busted wire sparking. Jimmy finds a bunch of documents in the file cabinet, official government records, confidential memos. And then an object rattles in the distance, and it kind of startles Lois. So she calls out, she's like, hello. And something runs by, and it's almost on 4 legs. So Lois walks around. They split up for some reason. So there's this one tube, it's empty, and she reads subject B1Z. B1Z, biz. DNA sequence, extraterrestrial, outcome, viable. And she's like, huh? She looks up, she's like, where are you now? And there's glass shatters somewhere, and then she sees this broken tube. Jimmy is still going through the files. He says something about DNA genomes, tissue samples from 0 day. He's like, were they making some type of weapon? So Clark and Kara are looking at this other one too, or there's something, big mass of something in there. And she says, it is Kryptonian DNA, Kal-El, in this tank. They were trying to create something. He's like, they were trying to create us. So Lois calls out to the others, and she's like, where is everyone? And she's shining her phone around. She sees something crawling on the side of a tube. It's this 6-legged beast with a tail, and it growls, and it leaps down at the ground, and she screams. So Clark and Kara zip over to her. Lois, she's already started running. Clark turns and sees the beast coming. Kara asks, is this a dog? Clark and Lois are both no. So Clark zips towards it and grabs its face to stop it from biting or whatever. It's slashing down some claws. It tears Clark's sweater, so you can see his S symbol. It punches him back. It opens its mouth, and it's shoots out this big energy beam. So Lois covers her face because it's about to hit her, but then Clark zipped in front in order to block it, and he freezes over. So it's freeze whatever you want to call it. So he's just in this big block of ice. Lois calls his name, and then Kara zips by. She's in costume now, so she changed. She is going to punch the beast. It hits a tube, but then it lands on his feet. Kara looks back at frozen Clark, and he busts out of the ice in costume. So somehow he changed in the ice. Okay. The beast fires another beam. Superman grabs Lois to fly her to safety. The beast is running alongside them. There's all these trees and stuff. And Jimmy calls out, he's this way. So Kara grabs him, and as they fly by, the beast approaches, fires another beam at them, and they fly through these big metal double doors. It closes behind them, and then the beam hits it from the other side. It starts to freeze the door. Jimmy says they're safe, but then the power shuts off, and then Lois and Jimmy scream. And it's funny how Lois and Jimmy are getting startled, but Clark and Kara obviously they're not worried because they got powers. So the power shuts off. Some machine starts whirring, and then this automated voice decontamination complete. So the light turns on, and they're covered in this thick foam, and it starts to drip off. So a door on the other side opens, and there's a bunch of strange plants and lights. So Kara flies up. She's like, this is Kryptonian flora, but how? So she names a couple other types or whatever. Then she calls out to Jimmy. She calls him Jimmy Flamebird. She's like, the Kandorian ivy likes you very much. And so it's this vine with a kind of face on it or mouth. It wraps him up and yanks him up, and he screams. So she sets him free, and she laughs. Lois calls out that the force thins out in this one direction. So there's this circle with a kind of golden tree. It's the leaves, fall. Leaves are changing color. There's a big tree in the center. Lois wonders if they're planting more earth trees here or what. And then there's a mound and a pair of glasses on there. Superman uses his x-ray vision. There's a body buried inside. And Lois and Jimmy freak out when he says, there's a body. And they're like, what? Who? He's his ID says he's Dr. George Otto Binder. And Lois is like, so something got loose in here and killed the researchers? And Superman's like, but if something killed him, why would it bury him? And then in a tree, the closed caption says it's Bizarro. He's like, no. There's like a big dude who looks kind of like Superman, but he has like long hair. Maybe he looks a little like Superman. He jumps down, he attacks Superman, and he's like taller, really jacked up. And then something starts flying. There's something in the air. It's like, is it a robot? Is it a Kryptonian drone? It's like watching. Something's watching. Superman and Bizarro are grappling. Kara zips in to like knock him back, and she's like, it is a Kryptonian clone, an abomination. And it like holds its face in like pain or scared. And Lois is like, B1Z. So then that beast thing, that 6-legged thing, like jumps over him and like snarls. Superman's like, we're not here to hurt you. There's a loud clang in the distance, and that animal kind of whimpers, jumps back like into the forest, and then the clone like whimpers too, and he jumps. So Jimmy wonders like, what are they so afraid of? And then there's like another like loud clang. So they open another door. There's this other area full of like the golden reddish trees or whatever. Kara says it's like your Earth, and Superman sees a kite in a tree, and Supergirl sees a drawing of like a butterfly. There's like a person and like a leaf like taped to a tree, and there's like some kid blocks on the ground underneath. Lois like, was someone raising a child in here? And Clark, like, he grabbed the kite out of the tree. There's another loud clang. Jimmy and Lois like scream. Superman says someone's in trouble, so he zips off. Supergirl stares at the block that she picked up, and then a muffled voice is like, you will be okay, but remember, being angry is never a reason to hurt someone. Make a different choice. So Supergirl walks up, sees like this chalkboard with a bunch of papers taped to it. There's a couple drawings. Everyone has his bad days and sad times, but you have the power to choose who you want to be. And there's this video, like there's a little TV, there's this dude talking, he has glasses, so it's probably Dr. Otto Binder. And Supergirl like kneels in front of the little TV. No matter what, choose to be kind. So she's just like really mesmerized with this. A voice calling for help. Superman lands by this big like smash door. Lois and Jimmy, they got there pretty quickly. Superman flew there, and somehow they're there too. So he opens the big metal doors, and there's this like white creature on the ceiling looking down at them, and it's a robot, and it's like, help me. It falls from the ceiling onto the floor, stands still, saying, help me. Superman calls for Lois and Jimmy to get back, or I don't know, maybe he's like, get back. Maybe he's telling the robot, get back, I don't know. The robot kind of hovers and flies towards Superman, carries him like back out to the trees, and then the robot grabs Superman, tosses him aside. The flying drone thing with the red light flies over. The robot grabs it, wires like come out of its top, and attaches to the drone to like make a head. So it lands, it turns, and it fires a blast out of its hand. Superman protects Lois and Jimmy as the blast like hits a tree behind them. The closed caption says that Bizarro screams in the distance. Superman tells him to stay with Kara. The robot's like attacking Bizarro and the Beast. Bizarro tries protecting the Beast and whimpers as the robot's hand starts glowing red. And then it shoots, but Superman blocks the blast with his hands, and he's like groaning. And then he asks if, he's like, is this what destroyed the lab? And he yells and like fires heat vision at the robot, knocking it back. He has to take like a knee to catch his breath. He looks at them. He's like, it was trying to get you. And Bizarro's like, no, because the robot's back attacks Superman. Superman gets slammed against this big wall. The impact made a hole, and the water starts like coming through. So Supergirl's still glued to the TV. Some people may be afraid of you. Fear makes people act irrationally, aggressively. But you can help them pass their fear. And so Lois and Jimmy are like standing behind her. And Lois is like, who is this guy? Jimmy's like, it's Dr. Binder. And then Lois is like, the doctor buried back there? And Jimmy pulls out a folder from his jacket. He took some files. He's like, and the geneticist in charge of Project Caliban. So Lois is like, so he was raising a clone here to be his weapon? And Kara's like, no. And she stands. Lois is like, that clone is a weapon so dangerous that the government shut this whole place down. And Kara's like, do you not see it? Binder taught this child how to nurture and grow. Do you think my father allowed me reverence for life? I do not even know how to grieve. And then there's a drawing of a clone and like Binder, like a child's like crayon drawing. She's like, this is not the way you raise a weapon, not the way I was raised. And Jimmy's like, so Bender was protecting the clone from the people who would exploit him? So the clone is carrying the beast and running. The robot's like shooting at them. Superman comes to fight it again. He delivers like a massive uppercut and like smashes some stuff. And then another hit sends it flying back. He flies down to the clone. He's like, are you all right? The clone like gasps and grunts. And then the super robot's back behind Superman. Grabs onto him, wraps his like arms and legs around him, starts like counting down from 10. He's like, it's going to self-destruct, run. So they run. He carries the robot up, it explodes, big white light. Superman like lands on the ground and like stumbles. He's knocked out. There's like a bunch of smoke. Alarm starts blaring. Lights flicker. Automated voices that Operation Security is compromised. Flooding to commence, so to evacuate. Water starts pouring in. Bizarro sets the animal down and he sees knocked out Superman. Water's like rising all around him. So he stares at Superman, not sure what to do. So he finally busts up through the ground carrying Superman and an animal. And then he touches Superman's cheek. He's like, my friend. And Supergirl calls out to Kal-El. He gasps. Still carrying the animal. He makes a big leap away. And Superman wakes up as Lois is near. He's like, what happened? Then later, back in Metropolis, children are trick-or-treating. All the kids walking the streets. Clark's actually giving out candy as Superman, which seems weird. And there's a kid, he's like a bird, a plane, and then there's another kid dressed as Superman. His eyes get all sparkly. Kara watches as Clark and Lois have their arms around each other, so she puts her arms around Jimmy, like pulls him closer. Then we see Bizarro. He's walking through like the busy streets of trick-or-treaters. He's like wearing like a blanket. He hears like Bender's words, your life is yours to create. With your powers, the possibilities are endless. This little girl tugs at his blanket, hands him like an unwrapped lollipop, like a Tootsie Pop or something. He takes it, and in Bender's voice, you are special, son. As long as you choose to be good and to be kind, your choices will change the future in ways you and I can't ever imagine. And then he sees an image of Superman like on a big like screen, like sort of like a Times Square that type of thing, and he smiles. Then we go to LexCorp, of course, right? Lex is watching the footage from the robot. So he was like looking through the drone. Slade Wilson, he's like, what's the word on Caliban, boss? And Lex says that their drone didn't make it out. The footage has been compromised. It's incomplete, but he's seen enough. Wilson asks if he should fetch the drone. And Lex is like, no, forget about Caliban. It was a failure. He's like, let's go see Hank Henshaw. And Wilson's like, Henshaw? That man needs machines just to breathe. And Lex is like, exactly. He's perfect. And we see him like in this other room or lab where they're hooked up to all these machines. So we're getting Hank Henshaw. It's like, great. So it was a interesting episode because, it wasn't really like Superman fighting anyone, which is kind of good after last season and all the Brainiac stuff. So, we got a chance to catch your breath and things are coming. So I enjoyed that episode. Okay, Spider-Noir. Oh boy. Season 1, Episode 5, Betrayal. So obviously all episodes are out. We'll get caught up soon. You may have seen this already, but a lot happens here. So it starts off, Ben and Kat go to a diner because she knows his secret now. So she wants to know his story. So there's a flashback back to the war. He says that they were sent to liberate a small town in eastern France. The Germans weren't so keen on giving it up, and so they're sneaking up around the corner. Germans are just standing around. So Ben throws a smoke bomb. They duck. They start shooting. Lots of shooting going back. They charge forward. Ben and another find a cell full of prisoners. He tries shooting Locke, but he's out of ammo. And this German soldier comes up and shoots the other guy with him. The other soldier. So then the German, he also has to reload too, but then one of the guys in the cell grabs him from behind, and then another one grabs his knife out of his belt, stabs the soldier. So Ben calls this other guy. He's like, get them out. So he shoots the cell open, and Ben says that if he had been to one shot, he says it's a cat, then which he almost was, none of this would have happened. So he's like, I think about that a lot. Cat takes his hand, and he tries pulling away, but she won't let go. So he continues that he and Private Smith, they went deeper in the compound. They find this room full hospital beds, and they're all tied to their beds. They move to free them, and Ben looks closely at like a bedside, and there's like a jar with like a praying mantis inside, and there's like a tube attached, and the tube goes into the dude's arm, and he's like sweating, and then there's like another jar that has like a snake in there, and then there's another bed that has like a reptile or something inside, and he tells one guy, he's like, I'm gonna get you out of here, pulls the sheet back, and he's got like a spider bottom, and then the guy turns, and like half of his head is like all spider, a bunch of eyes. He grabs Ben's arm and he bites, and Ben screams, and the guy won't stop till another soldier comes, shoots the spider guy in the head, and Ben keeps groaning. His vision starts going blurry, and he sees like a big spider in a jar next to the bed, and the private's like, what should we do? And then he's like, burn it all. So he like stumbles around outside in the streets. He like falls on his bum just as they snap the picture that Flint had in his place. So he was there. He freed all those guys. So that's how Ben got his powers. He got bit by a dude that was attached to the jar or whatever. Cat's like, and that was it? After that you were? He's like, yes. And he says it took some time at first to relearn how to be more human again. He went to the movies, he watched actors, studied the way they spoke and moved. The arachnid genes are still in him, like the tics and the thoughts and impulses, but he manages to suppress them most of the time. And she says that he once told her that he was a coward. She's like, and to think, I almost believed you. So she says that if Flint was there, then his powers must have come from the same place. But it's like, was there a jar full of sand? Ben says it's hard to think otherwise. And she asks, if that's the real reason that he took the case, and he's like, yes, in part, but he did it because he wanted to learn something from Flint. If something gave both of them these powers, then maybe something could take them back. And she's like, would you really want that? Lose all of your powers and going back to being just Ben Reilly? And he like chuckles. He's like, since Ruby died, that's all I've thought about being, just Ben Reilly. And she like stares at him, and he asks for more coffee. Robbie's in Walter's office, and Thelma, the secretary, brings them both coffee. Walters is like reading his article, "The Spider Defeats Electrifying New Foe." And Walter's like, you said he's an actor? He's like, we could call him Starman. And Robbie's like, aspiring actor. He's like, still working his day job as a subway driver. And Walter's like, subway driver? Almost too good. The conductor. And Robbie's like, He's like, it's electricity. He's a conductor. And Robbie's like, oh no. It's like the issue wasn't one of comprehension. And then Walter's like, you got photos? And Robbie's like, what do you think? So he has an envelope, but he yanks it away when Walters goes to grab for it. He's like, He's like, I'll let the Bugle publish my story on one condition. And Walter's like, you'll let? And Robbie, he kind of thinks about that, sets his coffee down, gets up. He's like, okay, calm down. He's like, what's the condition? Robbie's like, you run my piece as is or not at all. He's like, now, I need your word, Walters, no changes. Unless, of course, you'd rather I take this to the Herald. And Walter's like, you got a lot of nerve. Tell me how to do my job. He's like, fine, sure, whatever you want. So he reaches for the envelope, but then Robbie slams his hand down again. And he's like, and I want the Bugle to print a retraction about Lonnie Lincoln and Flint Marco. And Walter's like, that's 2 conditions. Anything else? He's like, well, now that you've mentioned it. And we see Robbie setting up his nameplate on a desk. And it's kind of tucked away between like some storage stuff, whatever. And the others in the bullpen area, they're kind of glaring at him. He's like marveling over his desk. He smiles, holds up his hand to like wave. He's like, good to be back. Chuckles. Elsewhere, Flint comes out of a car, enters a building. It's dark. There's like some grunting and shuffling. Lonnie's there. And he's like, hey, good to see you too. So he laughed. Lonnie says that he guesses Silvermane, took him back with open arms. And Flint says that man takes care of his own. And Lonnie's like, one big happy family. And Flint's like, room for one more, brother. And Lonnie's like, no offense. He's like, I'm done putting my life on the line for the white men. And Flint's like, won't be like that. And Lonnie's like, no. He's like, what then? Silvermane wants me to do his laundry? Or maybe he wants me to perform a little ham bone? And Flint's like, you can't live like this forever, Lonnie. And Lonnie's like, buddy, whatever is happening to us inside of us, I'm not too worried about living forever. And Flint's like, all the more reason. We need to take what we can while we can. And Lonnie's like, I'm not a criminal. And Flint's like, why don't you tell that to the mayor or the cops? He's like, take your pick. He's like, we're wanted men, whether we like it or not. And Lonnie's like, do you think that's new to me? He's like, That's been my life from the day I was born. And Flint's like, exactly. You risk your life for this country, and they still treat you like a second-class citizen. He's like, look, you said so yourself. We ain't going to make it to the retirement home. So let's take life by the balls while we still have a little life left in us. Like, here's Silvermane out. That's all I'm asking. At Ben's office, he looks over like a ton of papers. Janet and Robbie are there. And Janet, he's like, you've been busy. And she's like, yeah, someone's got to do the work around here. Robbie hands like some photos. And he's like, 4 veterans, all from the same POW camp, all with superhuman powers. And Janet's like, apparently the Germans were doing experiments on them. Some kind of failed super soldier program. I'm sorry, are we boring you? And he's like, the war ended 15 years ago. The question isn't what happened to them then. The question is, why are they getting their powers now? And Robbie's like, that's why he, and they were both like talking at the same time. Janet's like, that's why his name's on the door. And Robbie's like, it's on the door. And she's like, I know. And he's like, I didn't do my homework. He's like, and she's like, me either. She's like, and Ben's like, well, is that supposed to mean you know something? And Robbie's like, we do. And he's like, are you going to share it? And Robbie's like, are you going to be a dick about it? And Ben's like, yes, actually, a private dick, to be exact. Janet's like, okay. They were all seeing the same doctor at the VA hospital in Queens. The doctor's been running a study for the past 10 years on POWs. According to Lonnie, it was specifically about what happened to them in France. And Robbie's like, I keep telling you, you'd make an ace reporter if you ever wanted to ditch the stiff. And she's like, I have submitted a few applications. Ben's like, so the doctor's our guy? And Janet's like, she is a geneticist. Althea Faber, one of the top in the country, degrees from Stanford and Cornell. I mean, every accolade you could ever imagine. And Robbie's like, all that, and she chooses to work at a VA hospital in Queens. And according to Lonnie, she sought them out 9 months ago, knew all about the camp. And Ben's like, well, what are we waiting for? And Robbie's like, you a-hole, we're waiting for you. He's like, well then, let's go, Robbie. And Janet's like, you're welcome. And Robbie's like, don't rush me now, man. A cop turns off the power at the police station. He's like, lights out, boys. So they're like in a hall, like between like the cells. So they're laid in megawatt. It's like weird because now that the x-rays, they call them megawatt when they were fighting, but no one's referred to him as that. And now they're back to calling him Dick Layden. So I don't know if he's going to be called megawatt, but whatever. He's handcuffed to a chair. And he's a bit of a smart aleck. Like this detective like punches him. He's like, I'm going to ask you again. Where did you and your freak show friends come from? And Dirk's like, he says that he'll tell. He can't speak for the rest of them. But him, I'm from Poughkeepsie. And he blows him a kiss and he like laughs. And he's like, oh, he's mad now. He's like, yeah, I know that look. Hey, you remind me a lot of my father. Detective like plants his foot like on his crotch or something like that. I think it kicked him. I don't know. So then at a jazz club, I don't know if I think it was the Alcove. Yeah. Kat's sitting with Silvermane in a booth, and she's dancing a bit in her seat because the band's playing. And Silvermane says that the music's a bit too modern for his taste, so she signals to the band to stop. And then he looks at a newspaper, calls a spider a slippery SOB, and he wonders, what's his angle? And she says that, she's sure he's just, trying to get by, same as any of them. He asks, is that what, she was doing, just trying to get by? And it looks like, she's doing better than that. Wonder why? And she says that if he's feeling a little underappreciated, and he's like, well, maybe he is. And then she says that she gives thanks every day. And she says a little prayer before bed and everything. And he says that she ought to start saying one every morning that she gets to wake up. So it's like all these threats. And he's like, Winston isn't so lucky now, is he? And then Flint and Lonnie walk in, and Silvermane's like, there they are. And Kat's like surprised to see him. So Flint introduces Lonnie to Mr. Byrne, Silvermane. And Lonnie is like hesitant to shake hands, but Silvermane says that it's a pleasure to meet him. Flint's told him all about him. And Kat says to Flint, welcome back. Wasn't sure what happened to you. And Silvermane's like, you read the papers, don't you? He's a whole new man. You should see him when he gets going. Unstoppable. My new right hand. And Flint's like, don't worry, boss. Like, nothing's going to happen to you on my watch. And she's like, well, then, I guess congratulations on your promotion. I'm sure you'll make a wonderful couple. And Silvermane chuckles. He tells her that he has to talk business with the boys. and he tells her that, she's bored, look into another band, and, one that knows all the classics. And he's like, and while you're at it, look into another singer, someone young. And she just like looks at him and walks away. And then he's like, says Robbie's just full of piss and vinegar or whatever. So Robbie goes to a hospital. He tries talking to a nurse at the reception area. She ignores him. She's just reading a book. He asks if Dr. Faber is in, and without looking at him, she's like, do you have an appointment? And he's like, I do not. But he holds up his reporter card, and that gets her eyes to dart up immediately. He's like, just want to ask her a few questions. And then she just turns a page of her book, and she's like, I'll let her office know you're here. And he's like, if you would be so kind. And then he whispers, he's like, Paul dies at the end. I couldn't see what book she was reading. And he like walks away, I guess, to like the doctor's office. But it's like, I don't know if that's a good idea for spoiling things, because then she might prevent him from talking to him. Dr. Faber's reading a paper about the spider, and this dude comes in. He's like, there's a reporter downstairs from the Daily Bugle. And she looks at the byline of the article. So she decides to go down. And as she leaves, it looks like the spider's on the rooftop. You see someone walking up there, like through a skylight or something like that. Faber introduces herself to Robbie, and he tries finding out who the older... I thought he was an orderly, but she just cuts in. She's like, what exactly did you want to talk to me about? And Robbie's like, don't suppose you saw my story in the Bugle this morning? And she kind of like nods. He's like, it'll just be a couple of minutes of your time. Maybe spread the word about the work you're doing. He's like, that can't be a bad thing, right? And she's like, let's speak outside. Spider enters through the office, but actually, he's not very graceful. He like stumbles on the floor and everything, but it's actually Ben, and he doesn't have his mask on, which seems kind of crazy. And his like back is sore. It's like, he doesn't seem like he's in very good shape. And I'm trying to remember if anything happened. Well, I guess he was in a fight just against Megawatt or whatever. So he starts looking through, like there's like all these file cabinets. So Robbie asks Dr. Faber, he's like, what can you tell me about those men? And she's like, unfortunately, Mr. Robertson, we sent a great many men off to that war, and almost all of them came back with injuries, either physical or spiritual. And he's like, it's hard to remember all the patients you've seen over the years. And she's like, well, I hope that doesn't make me sound callous. He's like, oh, no. He's like, of course not. He's like, oh, also doesn't make me believe you. And he chuckles. And then the other dude, he's like, are you calling her a liar? And Robbie's like, I'm sorry, sir. I still haven't caught your name. So Dr. Faber's like, this is my secretary, Ogden. He's been with me for quite some time, and he can be a bit overprotective. And Robbie's like, no, I can respect that. But you're a smart woman. Do you really expect me to believe that you had no idea that 4 of your patients turned out to have superpowers? And she kind of like looks at Ogden, and he like looks back at her. And he's like, or why? Faber's like, you are obviously a very intelligent man yourself, Mr. Robertson, so you know that I'm not at liberty to discuss specific patient information with anyone but the police. And he's like, well, have you done that? Have you spoken with the police? And she's like, I am sorry, I cannot help you. And she gets up and turns to leave. He's like, and chuckles. He's like, did you help those men? It's like, I'm hearing their powers only started after they started seeing you. And she turns around, how dare you? How dare you? To come here knowing nothing and then accuse me of negligence in my care. Everything I do for a reason. Everything. And she turns again. He like struck a nerve, huh? And Ogden like turns, looks back at him as they leave. So Ben has like all the drawers open. He isn't finding anything useful. Then he just kind of stands and stares. Like one drawer didn't open all the way. So he like feels around there. He finds like a lock, like a secret button or whatever. Opens it up. There's like a stack of files in the back of that cabinet. Pulls them all out. Super detailed file. The first one's like for Flint Marco. And then here is like Ogden and Faber like outside the door. So Ogden's stammering. He's like, what do we do? And she's like, calm down. It's like Ben is trying to, he's inside. He's trying to stick the files in his coat. But he's like, he's got to close all these cabinets. He's got to get out of there. He's like, what do we do? And she's like, shut the door. So Ogden gets a little racist. He's like, he's a Negro, so maybe no one will believe him. Faber's like, I don't think so. And she takes like some pill or something, and she opens the door to her office. Ben is still in there, and he has his hand on his head with like an exaggerated accent. He's like, hey, Dr. Collins, where the hell have you been? I'm losing my mind here. Say, hey, you're not Dr. Collins. What's going on? And she sighs. She's like, no, Dr. Collins is on the second floor. And he he like shakes his hand, whatever. He's like, second floor, second floor, second floor, second floor. And he just keeps saying it. And she's like, all right, Ogden, could you please escort this gentleman downstairs to Dr. Collins' office? And he's like, the second floor, the second floor. And then Ogden, he's like, you don't like me very much. Ogden like stares as he like walks past. He's like, I know that man. And she's like, what are you talking about? And Ogden's like, he was there in France. He was the one who rescued us. And she's like, it's him. So she opens the trick drawer and she sees the back is empty. And she groans. She tells Ogden to stop him. So go. Ben and Robbie are outside. Ben is like reaching for like a hanging ball of web with the files. So he, threw it out the window. Robbie's like, hurry up. He finally gets them and they leave just as Ogden comes around the corner and he like misses them. He doesn't see the hanging webs either. So, what's his name? Layden, or Megawatt. He's still sitting in a chair. He's kind of beat up now. The other prisoners are sleeping, and a cop shines a light on him, tells him, because he's like babbling or he's saying like tongue twisters like over and over again. So the cop tells him, to shut it, and this other cop's like sleeping, and one's like looking at like a girly magazine at the desk, and Flint and Lonnie like walk in, and dude doesn't look at it. He's like too busy looking at the magazine. So Flint like taps the bell. Ding. The guy looks up and the cop like snoozing immediately. He wakes up because he was like sleeping on the counter. He had his head on there. So he knows that this is trouble. And what do? They start shooting. No questions asked. They just start shooting the two. Then guns click empty. They stare at them. Flint asks Lonnie, he's like, you good? And he's like, well, this was a new suit. One of the officers kind of screams out. And then this wakes up like Megawatt, Layden, a lot more shooting, more screams. Then the two appear outside the locked hall area. Lonnie like tears the door off the hinges. Two officers stand there with their guns up, and Flint's like, what are you waiting for? Run. They start like beating up like one of the detective dudes. Layden's like, howdy boys, like long time no see. And someone turns on a light. Silverman comes up with more men. He goes with Layden. He's like, that was quite the show you put on last night. And he like thanks him. Layden's like, he said he'd give him an autograph, but he doesn't have a pen. Silverman says that he assumes he knows who he is, and he does. He's like, the man with the mane of silver. He goes through like very flourishly, like all this stuff. Silvermane's like, I see you like to talk. Think you could listen for a second? And Layden, he says that he's like a Nebraska cornfield. He's all ears. And Silverman just stares at him. He's like, I'm listening. So Silverman stares at him. He's like, Mayor Morris appears to have forgotten who runs this town. My men and I are planning to remind him. I want you to help me. He's like, me? He's like, oh, well, my only regret is that I have but one life to give you, but I promise you, I will take plenty. Silverman stares, and then he says to Lonnie, he's like, get him out of here. Lonnie snaps the cuffs open. Drayden stands, he looks at the detective who's like waking up, and he's like he starts begging. He's like, I was just doing my job. Layden says, and now I'm going to be doing mine. He grabs the light bulb, like wire hanging. He starts like charging up. He plants a kiss on him and like zaps him, and then he's like, and scene. He like bows and like walks out. Silverman's like, that was weird. At the office, Ben and Robbie are reading files. Robbie says that prisoners were injected with irradiated plants and minerals and the genetic materials of spiders, scorpions, snakes, and Ben's like, eels, true. And Robbie's like, the Germans then altered the subject's genes by splicing them with those of other entities. It's like, over time, as the patient's genetic material began to decay, many suffered lethal mutations, while others survived in an altered state for months or years. And Ben's like, Faber has been looking for a cure, but all she's managed to do is activate latent mutations and accelerate them. She's trying to save them, but she's killing them. And Robbie's like, and that guy that bit you? She's like, yeah, he was dying, but I lived. Why? Robbie's like, He's like, a doctor making monsters in a secret lab in the Bronx? It's going to make for one hell of a story. And Robbie's like, It's like, first Black Pulitzer? He's like, well, it's got to be happen someday. And he's like, Robbie, I have a request. He's like, anything? Let me tell Kat before you print it. If Flint's going to die because of this, I don't want her to read about it in a newspaper. And Robbie's like, I said anything, didn't I? He's like, I'll give you a day, but I ain't losing the story. He's like, deal. And then he's like, so how bad is it? How deep are you in with her? I suppose you're going to tell me to be careful. And he's like, oh, no. He's like, careful's from stock tips and hot sauce. Matters at heart, I say, go for broke or don't bother going at all. Go for broke, huh? And he chuckles. Wouldn't take that much. And the phone rings. So he goes to the penthouse to see Silvermane. Flint, Lonnie, and Drayden are there, and they kind of glare at him. Silvermane asks if he can get him anything. He's like, a glass of the good stuff? He says he assumes he recognizes new associates. Ben raises his glass. He's like, congratulations, you've assembled an entire outfield of freaks. He's like, you guys see that movie Freaks, directed by Todd Browning? Still playing. You three could sign up for the remake. Flint steps forward and starts clutching his sandy fist. Silvermane's like, calm down. He's like, Mr. Riley's a little wise, but we're all friends here, right? And with almost like a you dirty rat accent, he's like, yeah, sure. Like you did a rat. And Silvermane, so in the spirit of friendship, I want to give you a chance to warn the spider that this fight is between me and Morris, and if he gets his nose in my business, he's liable to lose it. Is that clear? And Ben's like, as a bell. Is that all? I don't mean to be rude, but I've got theater tickets. And he does a big flourish point at Layden. He's like a Nicolas Cage arm gesture or whatever. He's like, you ever been on Broadway? No? Probably drove a train underneath it, though, right? Mr. To be or not to be. And Layden kind of growls. And Ben sings a song about cameras rolling, director calls, action, director calls, cut. I don't know what it is. Layden's rubbing his fingers and a little electricity sparking. Silvermane's watching. And then he's like, tell your friend it's in all our best interests to play nice. And Ben's like, here, you got it. And Layden growls again. So Ben's waiting for the elevator to come up, out in the hall. Flint comes out. He's like, hey. And Ben's like, I hear you make all the ladies faint. Make me faint. And Flint's like, I know about Winston. And Ben's like, my condolences. Were you too close? And Flint's like, I know you set him up, Riley, and I know you did it for her. So Ben finally turns and faces Flint. He's like, her? He's like, don't take me for dumb. He's like, I didn't tell the boss because he would have killed the both of you. And as mad as I am, I don't want Cat dead. And he kind of groans a little. He's like, you okay, pal? You look pretty rough. He's like, I'm fine. Ben holds his hand to his mouth. He's like, you keep doing Silvermane's dirty work, and maybe it won't be. He's like, you worry about yourself, Riley. It's like, you get one pass because you saved her. This is it. The elevator dings. Ben turns and enters the elevator. He's like, a hot dog at the game is better than a roast beef at the Ritz. He's like, think about it. The door closes. So Kat's in her apartment. She hears a thud. She turns around, Ben's there in the window. And she's like, now we've got no secrets? You're done with the stairs? He's like, I didn't want to be seen. Flint's back with Silvermane. And she's like, I know. I saw him this morning. Act like they didn't even know me. And Ben's like, and that bothered you? She's like, you swooped in here to ask me that? And he's like, he knows you tried to kill Silvermane. He heard us talking the other night. And she's like, and has he told him? He's like, he doesn't want to see you dead. She's like, he's not well, Ben. I'm worried about him. You should be. She lights up a cigarette. She's like, you can spare me a dramatic pause, whatever it is, I can take it. She's like, Flint and some of the other guys at the camp have been seeing a doctor at the VA, a woman called Faber. She's been trying to come up with a cure, but she's only made them worse. She's like, what do you mean worse? What the Germans did will eventually kill them, but she's speeding it up. And she's like, you mean Flint's gonna die? And she turns around. When? All I know that is every time he uses his powers, he gets a little closer. And she's like, thank you for telling me. He's like, Cat, he says one word and we're both dead. She's like, I'd like to be alone, please. And he turns to the window. What's left for us here? Ruby's gone. Flint's past helping. We're chasing ghosts. But you and I could have something. What if we left New York? Went someplace where nobody knows us? What was that island with the black sand? And she's like, Santorini. Snaps his fingers. Santorini. We could go there. Wherever you want. You could open your own club. And she wipes a tear and turns around. And she's like, what about you? He's like, well, I'll run it or bartend. I'll work for you. I don't know what this is, but I do know for the first time in years, I'm willing to take a chance and find out. And she's like, okay. And she goes in and they smooch. So then we see Ben at a diner with Janet and he orders a hot dog, but then he changes it to cottage cheese. And she's like, cottage cheese? You on a diet? And he's like, oh no, he says something. He's like, well, breakfast is on me. So he's like, you should have at it. And she's like, nah. She says now she's really confused. and he sings a little something, whatever, and he's like, oh, your curls in your hair is like, it will look lovely. And she's like, I got it done 3 weeks ago. She's like, now spill it. So he's like, I'm leaving town. And she's like, permanently? He's like, I think so, yeah, but don't worry, I promise you'll be taken care of. And she's like, what about the office? He's like, well, get rid of it or keep it. He's like, you're a better PI than I am anyway, so. And she's like, I'll be damned. It's Kat, isn't it? And he like laughs. He's like, it sounds crazy, I know, crazy. And she's like, Ben, because we've only known each other for a few weeks, which is what I've been saying, but if it took Kat to drag me out of this hole that I've been hiding in, well then I owe it to both of us to see there. And she's like, Ben, it's like, because this is the first time in years I feel alive. I mean, with matters at a heart, you got to go for broke. She's like, oh, for Christ's sake. And she's like, Ben, I'm really happy for you. He's like, you are? And she's like, yes. So we see Kat's packing again. Of course, there's a knock on the door. But it's like, shouldn't she should put the suitcase under the bed or something like that? But instead, she takes the gun out of her drawer. And she's like, who is it? And it's like, Lonnie Lincoln, man. I need to talk to you. It's about Flint. So she opens the door. So Flint's like pushing bullets from under his skin, like out of the sand, whatever, out of his hands, his armor. And he's at the old theater. So Kat comes in, she gasps. He's like, don't. She's like, Flint. He's like, don't. She's like, please, Flint, let me take a look at you. She's like, it's getting worse. She's like, I just want to help. And he's like, you've done enough, don't you think? And she's like, Silvermane will never let us be together. He's like, what I did for us. He's like, without telling me? Why? Because I'm stupid? And she's like, no. He's like, I'm just a meathead with brains in his fists. She's like, no, I didn't tell you because I knew you would say no. And how do you think that makes me feel, Flint? That you're more loyal to that man than you are to me? That you have me living under his thumb, unable to breathe without his say-so? And he like laughs. She's like, that's funny to you? He's like, no. She's like, what's funny is that I would have killed him for you. I would have done anything for you if you just asked. But you never gave me a chance. And why would you? I'm nothing but muscle for a gangster, huh? Well, maybe it's time that I accepted that. Lean into it. Ain't that right, Lonnie? You and me, buddy? About to die in a blaze of GD glory? And she's like, Flint, please. He's like, stay away from me. And she's like, please. He's like, stay away. And he like hits a beam, like for his like balcony or platform, whatever. And it like, it's about to fall on her. She screams. But the only reason she didn't get smushed is because Lonnie was able to catch it. And he like shakes his head at Flint. So Flint like stares and he walks out. And she's like, Flint. And Lonnie's like, let him go. And he like kind of grabs onto her. And then she like turns, goes the other direction. And he like sets the platform down. It's like, this Faber woman, she really couldn't help you? There's really no hope? And he's like, Faber said there's only one thing left to try, but she couldn't make it happen. And she's like, what was it? He's like, not what? Who? The spider. And she's like, why? Why would he change things? She thinks that his mutation is different, more stable than ours. She said that he could be the answer to all of this. Problem is, she's got no idea who he is or where to find him. So Faber's like packing. Ogden tells her they have to hurry. They have to go. They have to clear the lab. And she's like, maybe it's not as bad as they think. Maybe, he says that they can't be naive. As soon as a reporter publishes stories, that they'll be coming for them. And she's like, well, they can't just give up. And he's like, he says that she's done everything that she could. Now it's time to go. So they walk out in the rain. He's carrying a couple boxes, but then Kat walks up to him. She's like, Dr. Faber, she's like, I just want to know, if you find a spider, are you really able to help them? Flint, Lonnie, all of them? And Dr. Faber's like, you know who the spider is, don't you? And she's like, if I tell you, do you promise you won't hurt him? And she's like, you have my word. And then Kat, his name is Ben Reilly. Thunder cracks. And I'm like, fudge. So that's why this episode is called The Betrayal. It's like, dag nabbit, Kat. I mean, you would think that she would be more like, hey, Ben, guess what? You might be able to save them if you go to her. Maybe like ask him if he's willing to do it instead of just giving up his identity. So that was episode 5. And now the movie feature is Toy Story 5. So as I think about this, I think before it came out, it's like I had no idea. I mean, obviously when the trailer first came out or whatever, but it's like I didn't even know they were making one, and I'm okay with it. I know a lot of people after 3, they're like, oh, they should have just ended it there. 4, I mean, I haven't seen 4 since it first came out. And I think that was episode 95, because I looked at the image. Long story. Not really, but... so, I enjoyed the movie. What's his name? Duke Kaboom? He still cracks me up. But this one also, it's the same thing. It was good. I'll just get this out now. I enjoyed it. It was good. I do feel like it might have been a little geared more towards kids, but there's just something about, I mean, when did the first movie came out, and there's just something about all the characters and seeing the world. So even though things are kind of different, it's still, there's something about it. And what I realize, because there's a bigger focus on Jesse. While Woody is Woody, I mean, Woody's great and everything. I think because he's so, and you need him to be the way he is. He's kind of uptight and everything, very concerned, very whatever. And Buzz was a little more free spirit or whatever. Not so worried. But Woody's trying to keep, trying to be the glue to everything, keep everything, protect them. And I think what I like about Jessie is that she's a little more rambunctious, a little more free spirit or whatever. So there's something of, it's almost like not having to be so uptight. I think there's just something kind of enjoyable about that, refreshing. I don't know. So what is happening? The main thing of the story. So, the toys are with Bonnie. Woody is still with Bo and Duke Kaboom and I think someone else. They're still out on the road, trying to help rescue whatever lost toys, because more and more toys are being abandoned. So they're just trying to help them out and everything like that. So the others are with Bonnie and still having their adventures, and Bonnie is playing with them, doing all this stuff. But then the problem is she doesn't really have any friends. So what the parents decide to do, Bonnie's parents, is to get her a tablet type of thing. It's called a leapfrog or whatever. And this here's our message about the current state of everything, how kids are glued to devices, and to just keep watching stuff like that. So as soon as Bonnie starts watching, she's glued to it, and she's not really playing, and they're a little concerned, but it's almost like this is what happened when Buzz came. He was the fresh new toys, and everyone was worried, but she's just leaving them behind, and they're not sure if this is a good idea or not. And then more stuff happens. Bonnie ends up getting invited. She ends up getting added to, because Lily, she's well, I can help Bonnie. She's talking to Jessie. She's I can help her make friends. She puts her in a dance group chat, and Bonnie ends up getting invited to sleepover, and they're she's not ready for this, and we should have picked if these were good friends and all this stuff. And obviously things are gonna get worse, and chaos, and toys get separated, and all this stuff happens. Big adventure. But what the main thing, which what I liked about this movie, is that kind of going into Jesse's past. And one of the big concerns that came out is there's this kind of long running theory that Jesse actually belonged to Andy's mom. Because we kind of saw Jessie's story when she first came about, and there's idea that Jessie was actually Andy's mom, and then she eventually found her way to Andy. So it's kind of coming full circle and all this stuff. And there's reasons to think that. But when you see the trailer here, it was pretty clear that that's not Andy's mom, because like she had, I think, like reddish hair. She clearly was not Andy's mom. I mean, I was like, well, maybe there's still a chance, but it wasn't. So we kind of see a little more of Jesse's past, and that's where, even though it's a Pixar movie or just talking about toys, it's a little sad and a little emotional. And I think about like toys when they don't get played with, and the idea of abandoning things is kind of sad. And like my daughter, she's given away a couple things, and even now she's like, oh, I wish I still had that. I'm like, exactly. And I still have some stuff from when I was a kid and everything. So you got that whole piece of it. So there, just the movie in general, because I'm not going to spoil the whole movie or whatever. So it's cool to see more of Jesse's story, and of course Trigger's just super adorable, and the stuff with Buzz was funny and everything. So you have this message about devices, which is a good thing. Hopefully kids will learn something from that. And there were some like kind of jokes that are obviously geared a little more towards adults. So there's something for everyone. It wasn't wasn't the most spectacular movie ever made or anything like, and I don't think I would say it's like the best Toy Story ever, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it. But what I guess the thing that I look at is it had a $250 million budget. It's like, holy crap. And I don't know if it's just all the computer stuff, the CG stuff, it just cost me. I have no idea. But that is pretty crazy. And I don't, because when I'm recording this actually like really early, just to try to squeeze it all in and everything like that. So like the weekend predictions aren't up yet. Like I don't even know how much it made Thursday, and so I hope it's successful and everything like that. And they always say Andrew Stanton, and so it's like are there ideas for a sixth one? And I think he says like that's how they always kind of have ideas, but they kind of go into it as if this might be the last one, and if they can do another one, great. If there's like, I guess, a demand for it, or if it's successful, obviously, and all that. So we'll have to see. It is getting to the point where it's like, how much more is there to do? And I think I think they talked about like just going through more like Bonnie's stories or whatever, her as she grows older, because I think she's only like 8 years old or something like that. So there's still more stuff that could come. I'm okay with that. Oh, as far as where I saw it, so I mentioned earlier that I saw this in an XD theater, and I didn't realize it was a Cinemark theater. I don't normally go to Cinemark. I do occasionally, and I was worried that they're going to have 30 minutes of previews like they have every time I've gone to the Cinemark near me. They only had 17 minutes. And what did I see? I saw trailers for Gato, which looks cute. Hexed, might be interesting. There's Minions and Monsters. and Moana. I have to say, I should mention this in the news, the Moana live action, I'm a little concerned with that. I kind of don't want to see it. It's weird because, it's supposed to be live action, but then you got like the chicken and and it's like it just looks very CG. And I guess I haven't really watched too many of the live action stuff. It's like, is it really necessary? Do we really need this? So I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of, I hate to say it, I'm kind of hoping something else will be opening the same week, and I'll see that instead. But I don't know. We'll see. So I saw the XD screen, and it was actually where we're watching the credits, waiting for there is a mid-credit, end-credit sort of. The mid-credit is definitely worth sticking around for. End credit, I would say not so much. But as I'm looking at, I was like, this is a pretty big screen. And I'm like, it's not IMAX because it doesn't say IMAX in there. And then when we left got out of the theater, there was a big sign that said like XD. So XD, I had to look it up because I'm like, what is actually XD? Because XD to me is like Disney XD. It was a channel, but that's not what this is. And it's just, I think it's about the sound of the laser. I looked it up. I don't feel like, I'm sure you know what it is. I don't think you need me to tell you what that is. But it's just another big screen. It's supposed to be like wall-to-wall screens. So it almost looks like the IMAX Junior proportion, whatever, or ratio. And it's just supposed to have it was like a trillion different colors or something like that. And then I think I'm just what I read on the internet when I did a search. And I think it says it could have between like 4K and 8K resolution. It's like 8K resolution? It's like, okay. And I was thinking like the sound is supposed to be like have a real heavy bass. I was like, I didn't really notice anything spectacular about the sound. I mean, it sounded fine. It sounded normal. But now here's the kicker. I ordered tickets online. I was like, I'll pay for my brother. That's fine. And the tickets were $12.75 each because we went to like a 2:00 show. So I was like, okay, matinee, great, cool, awesome, because I rarely go to matinees. But then I was like, oh, we're at an XD theater. I was like, I wonder what the regular price is. So I was trying to look. So I go to like the next day to look at like another 2:00 time in a regular theater, and I think it was like $6.75. So it was like they added $6 just to go in this XD theater, and it was a big screen. You got the big seats and there. All that stuff. But I was like, I don't know if it was worth it. Maybe. It probably was. I don't know. So I don't know how I feel about that, but there you go. So overall, I'd say, it is, I already mentioned the song, which is weird because I thought someone said, no, the song will not be just playing during the end credits. That's when it plays. And because Randy Newman does the music throughout the movies, and he's the guy is brilliant. He's the music that he's done. I'm not going to go out and put on a Randy Newman record or anything like that, but I have deep respect for the music that he's done in all these movies, and he's really it's kind of like he's done the Toy Story, what I guess I could say like what John Williams done to Star Wars. It's weird not to have, it would be weird not to have that. But the song, the Taylor Swift song, it was fine. It was okay. There's no way I'm going to what am I going to listen to and, stream it? I did order a record because, that's like, of course, I want to get the vinyl, and they had I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but they made a vinyl for the single of Woody's star or Jesse's hat. So I was like, oh, the hat's kind of cute, so I'll get that. And that was without having listened to the song. It's okay. It is not one of Taylor's best. And the fact that it's like she didn't even write it by herself. And she's always like, I write all my music. It's like you write or co-write all your music, but you don't necessarily write all your or maybe you write all your songs. You don't write all of me. I don't know. This has been really hard. Like all this stuff, I've been going through. Like, is she not the nicest person? Why is there all this hate, all this conspiracy? Is she really trying to block everyone? Because Olivia Rodrigo's album came out. She released. There's like a piano version of the song. I think it was like 2 other versions, and that just seems weird. That the music, that it's mainly Billboard, that they allow for variants to count as the regular single, because they stopped counting YouTube music. So what does Taylor Swift do when she puts out a video? She puts it under Spotify Premium. So basically, like, she's saying, hey fans, you want to watch this video, you have to pay for Spotify Premium so you can watch it and give this a view that's going to count towards the billboards. Versus if you watch it on YouTube or YouTube Prime subscription, whatever. That's not going to count, so I'm not going to put it there. And there is no way. I do not have a Spotify Premium. My daughter does. I'm not going to pay for that just to watch a video. So it's just, she's clearly doing that just for the numbers. But we're not here to talk about that. Toy Story 5. So I think that's going to be it. That'll be it. Toy Story 5. It was good. It's worth seeing. And yeah, so not the best, but still good. Still classic characters. So that's going to be it for this week. So big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to that secret podcast from Heck, which is additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I got to think about what I'm going to do. I just did an off my mind about what it would be like to live basically in a Marvel universe, kind of DC superhero universe, but I also included like Galactus and Skrulls and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I'm probably gonna do like a what if next week. I don't know. I have to figure that out because, like I said, I'm not at home. If you can't commit to monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. That is ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. Part of me, I just wonder, so I'm recording this really late, my parents' basement. I'm hoping that they can't hear me because I'm in the basement and they're like upstairs. So that's, again, why I didn't really clarify that. That's why this probably sounds a little different. What is going to be next week? I was like, I have no idea what's going to be next week. Next week is going to be Supergirl. That is going to be the movie feature. Super excited to see that. I'm going to see it with my daughter. That's going to be like a belated Father's Day outing since I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be with my father on Father's Day. And I'm super excited. And there's some early reviews. They're very favorable. How accurate, I don't know. Are the actual people reviewing, or is it people kissing up because they got to see it early? I'm kind of skeptical about that. But I'm also super excited to see this movie. I cannot wait. But it sounds like people are saying that Supergirl is great, Lobo is great, so we have all that to look forward to. And then I don't think there's any new TV, so we'll probably still do one Spider-Noir. Might as well just do one a week, just drag it on since I don't know if anything else is coming up. And another My Adventures with Superman. I'm a little worried about what's coming up, but it'll be fine. So that is it for this week. Next week's episode, I should be back at home. Oh man, this has been a crazy week and it's not over yet. I hope you are doing well. I hope this episode was adequate, enjoyable. I hope you're taking care of yourself. And I hope you remember, be good to each other.